Hello, everybody. Welcome to this We Did It Health event. At We Did It Health, we're working to create a healthy, happy, vegan, and plant-based world. And we're doing that through building community and offering resources such as today's discussion to help you create relationships where you will plant seeds of hopeful curiosity in others when they ask about a vegan or plant-based lifestyle. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel where we have many informative workshop presentations. And we also invite you to join our Facebook community so you can connect with others and find support and encouragement with like-minded members. Links to our group are in the description below. And my name is Mariquita Solis, and I'm very excited to welcome Dr. Camila Perussello to today's program. Welcome.
Thank you, Mariquita. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for episode number 5 of this 6-part series on food processing and health. And today we will talk about food packaging and labeling to help you interpret the information on food labels and enable you to make healthier and more ethical food choices for you and your family. So let me share my screen. Okay. Can you see the slideshow? Can you see it?
Yes, I can see
it. Okay, perfect. So before we start, as we always do, let's have a look at the series overview to recap the topics we covered in the previous episodes. So in episode 1, I shared a little bit about my career journey as a food engineer and scientist. I explained what food engineering is as a profession, and I discussed how food technology helps us feed the global population with diverse, sustainable, and healthy food. Then in episode 2, we explained why a plant-based diet is a central part of a healthy, peaceful, and sustainable lifestyle. I also gave you precious tips on how to make the most of your food choices, whether you already eat plant-based or not. Then in episode number 3, we talked about food processing and health. I know that many consumers use the term food processing or processed foods in a negative way, not understanding that food processing is a tool that can be used for different purposes. For example, we can use processing methods to increase food safety, food diversity, and nutrient bioavailability. Or we can transform low-value ingredients into appealing but nutritionally poor products. So purpose is very important. Then in episode 4, we explained why food additives are used in food production. We talked about differences in the regulation of food additives across countries and how to avoid them in your diet. And today, we will talk about a range of topics related to food packaging and labeling. For example, nutrition facts, the difference between use by and best before dates, and the meaning of claims such as sugar-free, organic, free range, free of artificial colors, and so on. Now, let me get straight to the point and start with an honest and unpopular opinion. We often and rightfully get angry with the food, pharmaceutical, and other industries, with politicians and all those in powerful positions for not telling us the truth about things that concern us. Life would, of course, be much easier if we could trust governments and industries. But that's not how it works. And most importantly, it's not how it was designed to work. We live in a corrupted, shallow society with twisted values. So while we should always keep fighting for truth and transparency, we also have to be smart and take control of our lives. And the best way to do this is to be mindful of our choices and consumption patterns. If you keep buying unhealthy food that hurts animals, food that is resource intensive, if you expect someone else to decide things for you, nothing will change. Society is a reflection of us as individuals. So we have to ask ourselves who we want to be in relation to the injustices happening around us. Unless we are living under a rock, we all know that animal products are cruel, they are resource intensive, they have a major ecological footprint, and they are associated with most diseases affecting humankind. Heart disease, for example, the #1 killer in the world, cancer, obesity, and so on. And while we cannot control everything around us, one thing we can do for sure is to be mindful of what foods we allow into our homes and our bodies. Food is a powerful form of resistance against manipulation, injustice, and violence. And doing this is much easier than you think. If you have time to buy and cook meat, fish, dairy, and eggs, you have time to buy fruits, vegetables, grains, beans, and lentils. If you can afford animal products, then you can also afford potatoes, vegetables, tofu, beans, and grains. And by migrating from a system that hurts everyone, by migrating from habit, tradition, and empathy towards intelligence, respect, and empathy, you start liberating yourself from this corrupted system that hurts everyone, hurts us, the planet, other animals. So plant-based eating, and especially veganism, are extremely empowering. Now, it's very common to see people complain about all the work they have to do to avoid unhealthy food. And that's because they usually focus on the wrong things, on problems of secondary importance. For example, they look for a gluten-free, ready-to-eat lasagna instead of going for foods that are naturally gluten-free. For example, potatoes, rice, quinoa, nuts, soybeans, and veggies. And by choosing the ready-to-eat meal, they will most probably consume unnecessary amounts of fats, calories, saturated fats, additives, and also high glycemic ingredients. Another example of wrong focus. When people who are lactose intolerant or just want to avoid lactose choose lactose-free milk, lactose-free cow's milk instead of plant-based milk, which is naturally free of lactose. And by choosing cow's milk, they are paying for, of course, animal exploitation and environmental depletion, but also exposing themselves to saturated fat, cholesterol, hormones, growth factors, and environmental toxins, which for biological reasons build up in animal tissues and secretions. So that's one of the many reasons why we need to change our mindset when it comes to food and nutrition. And we must reconsider our treatment of other creatures that share this planet with us. We are not above nature, we are part of nature. So I always say that which harms others harms ourselves back, literally. Science is absolutely clear about the destructive role of animal use, from climate change, deforestation, and species extinction to diet-related diseases and animal origin pandemics. So we have to think about the future we are creating for us and the next generations. Hurting animals is not only unethical, it's also stupid, to be quite honest. Now, when you go grocery shopping, what's your mindset? What aisle do you go to first? We all know that fruits, vegetables, nuts, beans, and whole grains are healthy and necessary for good nutrition. So why do these foods make up such a small part of the average people's shopping cart? Consumer studies show that taste, convenience, and price are the top 3 priorities when buying food, in that order. And of course, here I'm referring to those of us who are privileged enough to have access to healthy food. And the average person is living on autopilot mode. They're too busy to think about what they're doing. They say they don't have time to cook or they don't like it, so they just keep consuming unhealthy food. You see, it's a cycle. You're too busy working to buy stuff you don't need, frequently to impress other people, or to fill up a void that will never be filled with material things anyway. And then you get easily manipulated by industries and media. You center your diet around dairy, meat, eggs, white bread, ready-to-eat meals, sugary foods. Then you get hooked, depressed, overweight, sick. You trust the propaganda convincing you that you need cow's milk for calcium or meat for protein, when modern science clearly says otherwise. And as a result, you spend a lot of money on drugs and medical treatments. You also say you love animals and are against discrimination, yet you pay other people to have certain types of animals confined, exploited, mutilated, and killed. You spend tons of money taking supplements and buying the latest superfood, while following a balanced plant-based diet is a cheap, delicious, and natural way of preventing and reversing diseases. So industries don't like smart, compassionate, healthy people. Those people are not profitable. Industries live off gullible, apathetic consumers who consume and don't ask questions. So my mission is to bring people back to reason and help them regain control over their lives and live more mindfully and peacefully. So before we analyze our first food label, let's understand some basic concepts about food packaging. A lot of research and technology and effort go into creating food packaging materials and designing proper food packaging for foods and beverages. The packaging helps contain the product, transport it over long distances, and keep it safe until consumption. Packaging also helps convey important information to the consumer, like expiration dates, nutrition facts, potential hazards, for example, allergens, and even the way the food was produced. The packaging also increases convenience and serves a marketing purpose. Beautiful packaging sells more, especially when it comes to children, but not only them. And beyond the visual appeal of the packaging, strategic claims and wording can also convince people to buy one food item over another. But while consumer studies confirm that health and nutrition receive constant attention from consumers, they usually get confused about the meaning of all the information on food labels. And another concern is whether health, nutrition, and animal welfare claims can really be trusted. So the most basic information all packaged foods must carry on the label are the name and address of the manufacturer, packer, or distributor, the brand and name of the product, approved nutrient claims and health claims, then also the weight, volume, or count, depending on the type of product, the expiration date, and sometimes also the date the product was manufactured or repackaged. And finally, the nutrition facts informing the number of calories and percentage of specific nutrients. Not always, but in general, the more processed, the more information you'll find on the label, which doesn't mean that produce cannot also carry a label with meaningful information. By law, fruits and vegetables in their natural state don't need to carry an expiration date. However, they can be labeled with health claims and other relevant information, for example, the name of the producer. Even the numbers you see on fruit and veggie stickers mean something, for example, the growing method. So let's talk about this. Why do the codes on fruit and veggie stickers mean, and why should we pay attention to them? First of all, the numbers on the stickers are called PLU codes, or price lookup codes. There are approximately 1,500 PLU numbers, and each of them refer to a different type of fresh produce. The PLU numbers are standardized worldwide, meaning the number, for example, 4011 stands for conventionally grown yellow bananas anywhere in the world. These numbers help the cashier know what produce you're buying and charge you the right amount. But the number doesn't tell you where the produce is from or who's the producer, but frequently you can find this information on the label too. And a key information the consumer can obtain from the PLU number is whether the food is organic or conventionally grown, if it's been genetically modified, or even treated with radiation to extend the shelf life. For example, fruits and veggies with 4-digit numbers are conventionally grown. 5-digit numbers starting with 9 are organic. 5-digit numbers starting with 8 are genetically modified. 5-digit numbers starting with 3 mean that the produce has been irradiated to kill pathogens. And finally, 5-digit numbers starting with 6 are pre-cut fruits and veggies. And another important thing is that depending on the country, genetically modified fruit and veggie doesn't need to be labeled as such. So from the labels, the only way to be sure that your fruit or veggie is not genetically modified is by choosing organic products, because organic production doesn't allow GMOs. And if you need more information about the PLU codes, you can look them up on the code database. Yeah, some people find it annoying to find stickers on their fruit and veggie, but you find them in most big supermarkets and food stores. However, you can avoid the stickers when you shop at, for example, farmers markets, organic food stores, community-supported agriculture programs, or of course, if you grow your own food. On the other side, the fact that the produce is labeled can be positive too, because you can track how it was produced. And the fact that you buy directly from the farmers is not necessarily good, because you don't know how the food was grown. Can we trust everyone? So sometimes these labels are a good thing. Another important thing we need to know about food labels is the meaning of expiration dates. The two main expiration dates we find on food labels are best before and use by. And they are associated with the reason why a food or beverage spoils. Different foods spoil for different reasons. For example, microbial growth, biochemical reactions, and physical reactions, for example, moisture uptake. So certain products might not have retained its best quality, like a cookie that became softer, but it doesn't mean that consuming it will cause you any harm. While other products might pose serious health hazards, like meat and dairy products carrying considerable counts of dangerous bacteria. So that's why food legislation requires different expiration dates according to the product. So having that in mind, use-by dates refer to food safety. This means that you should not eat these products after the expiration date because microbial pathogens might be present in a dangerous number. While best before dates refer to food quality, so you can still eat these products after that date. The difference is that the product might not be as fresh as before. So most animal products and other perishable foods carry a use-by date, while vegetable products like pasta, rice, dried pulses, tinned fruits, and chocolate carry a best before date. Understanding date labels can help you avoid getting sick due to food poisoning, avoid food waste, and of course, save you money. And a very important thing to remember to keep your food fresh and safe for consumption is obviously to follow the storage instructions. If you leave a perishable product out of the fridge, for example, it will spoil before the date indicated on the label. So if you go to the supermarket and see a discounted product that is near the expiration date, but is stored properly, yes, you can still consume it, given that you store it under proper storage and hygienic conditions, and then you can safely eat the food until its use-by date. Or you can even freeze it to extend their shelf life beyond the expiration date. And if a product is labeled with the best before date, the food might have lost, for example, its firmness, crispness, or consistency, but you can still eat it or repurpose it. Other date labels sometimes appear on food packaging, for example, sell by or display until. These dates don't need special attention from us because they are actually meant to help retailers control their stock. In addition, labels like those are not even considered under the European Union regulation, for example. So the most important labels to understand and look for are the best before and use-by dates. Let's look at health claims now. There are as many health claims as there are food products. Many of them are not necessarily mandated by legislation or even regulated. They are more used to attract consumers. But let's explain the main health claims. Let's start with diet and light foods. Many people get confused about the difference between those two labels. Now, diet products must have 100% of a specific ingredient removed or replaced with another ingredient. They are usually targeted at people with specific health conditions, for example, diabetes, high blood pressure, or high cholesterol. Diet soda, for example, has no sucrose, no table sugar. In the meantime, light products have at least 25% of a certain ingredient removed or replaced with an alternative, or at least 25% fewer calories. And depending on the country, this percentage rises to 50%. And light products are usually targeted at people who want to reduce their intake of a certain ingredient or lose weight. Now, if a product is sugar-free, or zero sugar or 0 calories, it will have the sucrose replaced with alternative sweeteners, which can be natural or artificial. Aspartame, stevia, sucralose, sorbitol, and so on. Some of these products can have 0 or near 0 calories, but others may have even more calories than the regular version. And that's because sugar-free products can have less than 0.5 grams of sugars per serving. And they can still contain calories from other sources, including other carbohydrates, but also calories from fats and from proteins. So sugar-free foods and beverages might not be suitable for diabetics and are not necessarily 0 calorie, while the 0 calorie claim means the sweetener that replaced sucrose has near 0 calories per serving. Okay. Now, high fructose corn syrup is used to replace sucrose, but it's as harmful as sucrose. A high intake leads to tooth decay, increased liver fat, diabetes, and obesity. But it's important to note that usually high fructose corn syrup is far from being the only concern in the average people's diet. This sweetener is found everywhere in soda, fruit juice, yogurt, morning cereals, bread, ice cream, cookies, frozen pizza, salad dressing, ready-to-eat meals, McDonald's products, and so on. So if you're consuming too much high fructose corn syrup, it's because you're consuming unhealthy food in general. Along with sugar, whether it's sucrose, fructose, or glucose, you're most probably consuming too many calories and too much fat and refined carbs. So watch out for not blaming a single ingredient when the problem is actually your diet as a whole. Okay, GMO foods. GMO-free foods means the food and its ingredients have not had their DNA altered to meet certain characteristics. For example, crops that are made resistant to insects. The safety of genetically modified foods is still up for debate within the scientific community because we don't have as much long-term studies as needed to draw definite conclusions. But according to the World Health Organization, genetically modified foods are not likely to present risks for human health. The only way to avoid genetically modified foods is to buy 100% organic foods or grow your own foods organically. But I understand this is unrealistic for the vast majority of us. And an important thing to remember is that GMO-free products can be either organic or conventionally grown, but all organic foods are GMO-free. Now, foods and beverages that are free of artificial colors or flavor agents can still have added colors and flavors that were human-made in a lab, but are identical to the molecules found in nature. So if you haven't watched the previous episode on food additives, please do so to understand this better. There are 3 main classes of food additives: natural, nature identical, and artificial. Okay, but regardless of the origin, all additives must undergo safety tests and be approved before use. Gluten-free foods are free from a protein called gluten that may cause allergy or sensitivity in certain people. Grains that contain gluten include wheat, rye, barley, spelt, and triticale. Triticale is a cross between wheat and rye. And an important thing to have in mind is that when the label says may contain gluten, it means the food was processed in equipment that also process foods containing gluten. So there might be the risk of cross-contamination. And then for safety reasons, manufacturers must warn consumers about this. So if you have celiac disease, please don't consume foods with a may contain gluten warning, even if you don't see any gluten containing ingredient on the ingredients list. A 100% whole grain. I know it's a lot to remember. There are so many labels, but I'm trying to summarize the ideas here. Now, in their natural state, grains have the bran, the germ, and endosperm. The bran, which is the outer layer of the grain, contains much of the fiber, vitamins, and minerals of a grain. So when we refine grains, we are usually left with the germ, which is nutrient rich, but it also makes up a very small part of the grain. And we are also left with the endosperm, which is basically made of carbohydrates and a little bit of proteins. This means that when a product is 100% whole grain, it retains most of its fibers, vitamins, and minerals coming from the grains. So whole grains are always more nutritious than refined grains. Okay, the other label is 100% natural or all natural. This label, this claim doesn't mean much. It's not even regulated by legislation, and it can refer to many things. For example, the absence of artificial colors, added sugars, or even growth hormones in animal-based products. So it leaves room for interpretation. And most importantly, terms like 100% natural, all natural, and even fat-free are often slapped on foods that are not even healthy. Like we discussed in episode 3, the fact that something is considered natural doesn't mean it's healthy or, in fact, as natural as people imagine. Take animal meat, for example. The animals have been crossbred and genetically modified for decades for specific characteristics and growth rates. The animals are pumped with antibiotics and growth promoters all their lives. So we cannot really say meat is natural, despite what people think. Moreover, like we've said before, animal flesh is proven by multiple research studies to be carcinogenic, not only red meat, but also chicken. So the term natural doesn't mean much in terms of health. And finally, 100% organic products are those made entirely from organic ingredients. So if we are talking about plant-based production, the crops, plant-based products, the crops are free of synthetic fertilizers, pesticides, and herbicides. If we are talking about animal-based ingredients, then the animals were fed exclusively organic feed or grass and were not given antibiotics or growth promoters. But if the product says just organic, as opposed to 100% organic, it means that at least 95% of the ingredients are organic. And also, a label that says made with organic ingredients means that the product must have a minimum of 70% of organic ingredients. And also keep in mind that organic is not synonymous with healthy, as many people think. Organic foods can still be packed in fat, calories, sugar, and other harmful substances. Think of cow's milk, for example. Even if it's organic, cow's milk contains high quantities of saturated fat, cholesterol, lactose, natural opioids, which are addictive, growth factors linked to diabetes and other serious diseases, natural hormones associated with hormone-related diseases, and also cancer-promoting substances like casein, which is the main protein in milk. Not to mention that around 70% of the global population is lactose intolerant. So while organic foods are healthier than their conventionally grown counterparts, they may not be healthy. So please watch our previous episodes to learn more. Now let's talk about animal welfare claims. Now, non-vegans frequently look for animal welfare labels, either because they believe these products are of better quality or because they think animal welfare regulations ensure the animals are well treated. There are many possible labels associated with husbandry practices and raising methods, for example, such as organic, free range, grass-free, and also labels associated with specific accreditation schemes like Red Tractor in the UK and Certified Humane in many countries around the world. But here's a takeaway message. Animal suffering is inherent to animal-based food production. If we consume animal products, we are paying for them to be exploited, used, and killed. So while animal welfare standards are important because at least they have some protection by law, they also mean very little in an exploitation system that involves all kinds of cruel and unavoidable practices. But let's see the meaning of some claims you might find on the label of animal-based products. Starting with organic. So, like I said before, the diet of organically raised animals is exclusively organic. And when they are free to roam and forage outdoors, the grass is free from chemical inputs. This means that the end product, their flesh, organs, and secretions, will pose lesser potential hazards. For example, you won't be consuming drug residues, herbicide and pesticide residues, heavy metals and dioxins, but you will still be paying for, of course, animal suffering, and you'll be consuming saturated fat, cholesterol, natural hormones like estrogen from milk, and also cancer-promoting substances. And then when it comes to animal foods, when it comes to, yes, animal-based products, organic farms must also follow housing and husbandry standards, for example, outdoor access and the size of barns. However, the animals are still property. They are a source of income. So they are forcibly impregnated, mutilated, transported long distances. They are killed. Newborn babies are still taken away from their mothers so we can drink their milk or eat their body parts and so on. So eating organic animals doesn't help animals. Now, another common label is cage-free. Okay, cage-free might mean different things depending on the industry. We might be talking about cage-free hens, stall-free sows, and so on. But in the case of egg-laying hens, cage-free means they are not confined into tiny cages, but this doesn't mean they are free to roam outdoors. I will give more details later. While free range means something different, free range animals must be allowed outdoors for a number of hours during the day, and this varies from country to country and even from sector to sector, depending on whether we are talking about egg-laying hens, cows, or pigs. And then the other label is grass-fed. Okay, grass-fed is a term that doesn't mean much and is not even regulated in most places. It means the animals were fed grass, but not necessarily out in the field. Okay, they can be fed grass inside a barn under heavy confinement, for example, or they can be allowed some time outdoors eating grass, but the grass might not be their primary source of nutrition. And like I said, there are dozens of animal welfare labels, and we have limited time here. So if you want to learn more, please check out my latest book, Food for Thought: Planetary Healing Begins on Our Plate. The book details the differences between each production method for each sector within the animal industry: beef, pork, poultry, dairy, eggs, and fish. And this book is an exhaustive work of research based on my professional experience as a food scientist, hundreds of peer-reviewed studies, interviews with industry experts, and undercover investigations in animal farms across the world. So in simple, plain language, the book explains why we must stop using animals if we want to create a peaceful, healthy, decent, and prosperous future for everyone. Another important thing that we need to know about animal welfare labels is that regardless of the treatment the animals receive, their destiny is the same. For example, let's picture 3 different rearing systems in egg production: battery cages, cage-free, and free-range. Now, can you imagine not being able to open your door, your arms, your entire existence? So that's the life of a battery caged hen. Battery cages are the traditional system in egg production, where several hens are confined to a tight cage where they cannot even spread their wings. Most hens are raised this way. The next system is cage-free. So, like I said before, in cage-free production, the hens are not confined into cages, but they never get to see daylight. They are kept inside crowded sheds with artificial lighting, breathing ammonia from their own excrements 24/7. And finally, we have free-range, the free-range system. Free-range hens are allowed outdoor access for some time during the day, but the amount of time can be very short and the quality of the outdoor space varies. So in the US, for example, limited access to a cemented bare area is considered free range. Also, the farmer has to demonstrate that the animals have outdoor access. For example, a small passage from the shed to the outside area would count as free range. But the thing is, there is no frequent inspection to check if the animals really get to exit the barn and spend some time outdoors. So, and also the sheds in free range farms can still house thousands of birds at one time. Okay, so, but all in all, it's fair to think that free range hens have a better life than battery caged hens. But what consumers don't know is that regardless of the raising method, egg-laying hens are killed after 1 to 1.5 years because at some point they are so tired and weak that they cannot lay the expected number of eggs anymore. So the industry calls these animals spent hens. So while meat chickens, also called broilers, become prime chicken cuts, egg-laying hens become lower graded meat used in processed food and pet food. And I apologize if other vegans are watching this. I know it's painful, but at the same time, we have to educate people. And I understand these pictures are not graphic, they're not bloody or anything, but unfortunately, it's the reality. In any production system, including free range, the role of hens is to obviously lay eggs and generate offspring to keep a constant herd. And let's remember that these are sentient beings used as machines. In any production system, male chicks are a byproduct because they don't lay eggs. So they're either shredded alive or suffocated to death using different methods depending on the country. And these are standard practices. Male chicks are discarded everywhere in the world, regardless of the production method. So the labels used by the food industry mask the reality of animal farming. Okay, that's why if we genuinely care about animals and about justice in general, the only consistent position is to be vegan. And please don't think this is a matter of improving animal treatment or label accreditation in the food industry. 80 billion land animals and trillions of aquatic animals are used for food, even though animal products are unnecessary and unhealthy. I've said this before in episode 2, I think, but it's worth emphasizing that animals have 3 main options in the food industry, and all of them are bad. 1, they are brought into existence to be killed when they reach the desired weight. Option 2, they are captured in the wild and killed using violent methods. Or option number 3, they are forcibly bred, used as machines, and killed when no longer profitable, like dairy cows, female pigs, and egg-laying hens. In 2023, in a world that claims for peace and justice, how can we justify this? And not by coincidence, a plant-based diet is not only ethical, but also the healthiest and most sustainable among all diets. So everyone wins. Now, let's finish the presentation with 2 food labels to understand some key nutrition facts you should watch for. So this is a bread made of wholemeal wheat flour, which corresponds to nearly 60% of the dough. The other ingredients are water, yeast, salt, rapeseed oil, soy flour, which is used to improve the texture and increase the protein content, and 3 food additives. They are used to, these 3 food additives are used so the dough grows better and the bread becomes softer and moisture. Then allergens are usually highlighted in bold letters. So in this case, we have wheat and soy. Regarding the nutrition facts, the label shows that 1 slice has 90 calories, or 4% of the average daily intake of an adult. The product is also fairly low in fats, 1%, and also low in saturated fats. The sugar content is also low, 1% of your daily intake, and it has a fair amount of sodium, 7%. So in this case, salt would be the main concern. And I don't know if you noticed, but this label is one of those summarized labels present on the front part of the packaging, on the front side of the packaging. And it generally emphasizes key elements like the low percentage of things you should avoid or the high percentage of essential nutrients. And the complete nutrition information is always on the back of the packaging. And then the other example I have for you today is a food label we discussed in the last episode. This is a bar of milk chocolate. It has 380 calories in a bar of 73 grams, which is very high. Out of those calories, 210 calories come from fats. The overall fat content in this product is high because the product contains cow's milk, cocoa butter, and almonds, and all of them are high in fats. But most importantly, half of the half of the fats in this product are saturated fats. And of course, we should avoid saturated fats because they clog our arteries and can lead to high blood pressure, obesity, stroke, and heart attack. And how do you reduce your intake of saturated fats? Again, by reducing or eliminating animal products. Only a few plant foods are high in saturated fats, for example, coconut oil and palm oil. So giving up animal products is a great way to reduce your intake of saturated fats and also cholesterol, because only animal products have cholesterol. By eating this chocolate bar, you would be consuming 60% of the maximum recommended value of saturated fats and also 15 milligrams of cholesterol. The cholesterol, of course, comes from milk. This product doesn't specify the amount of trans fats, but the thing is, this doesn't mean it's zero, okay? Products that claim to have no trans fats can actually contain less than 0.5 grams per serving. And trans fats are also bad for you, for our heart, and the ideal intake is 0. Common sources of trans fats are ultra-processed foods like margarine and animal products. And then regarding carbs, what we need to know is that total carbohydrates are usually split into dietary fibers and sugars. Dietary fibers are great for the health of your microbiota. They feed good bacteria, resulting in better digestion, lower inflammation, higher immunity, and better overall health. While sugars have the opposite effect. The regular consumption of added sugars causes weight gain and can lead to diabetes, metabolic syndrome, addiction, liver damage, and heart disease. But on the good side, this product also offers good amounts of fibers, protein, calcium, and iron. So I end this presentation with a core message. If you follow a whole food plant-based diet, you automatically eliminate cholesterol from your diet and minimize additives, saturated fats, and other potentially harmful substances. The key to a healthy diet is to eat plants in a varied and balanced way and avoid animal foods, ultra-processed foods, salt, and sugar. This way you can increase your energy levels, you can increase your focus, boost your physical and mental health, and even revert diseases like type 2 diabetes. In the next episode, which is the last one of our series, I will discuss the future of food, explaining why an animal-free food industry is necessary if we want to prevent a climate catastrophe and live in a world with food, clean water, and fresh air for everyone. I will explain what the food industry is doing to replace animal products with animal-free foods that are healthier, less resource-intensive, and tastier than their animal-based counterparts. We will also talk about lab meat or cultivated meat, whether it's a good idea or not, whether it's vegan or not, and so on. So please join us for episode number 6 in March. So that's it for today. Thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed. And yes, I'm available for questions. I don't even know if we have time because I know I talked a lot today.
Thank you. There are some questions in the chat.
I have a question too.
Okay, go ahead.
Obrigado, Dr. Camila, and óptima apresentación and pergunta, por favor. My question is for people who are like resource poor or low socioeconomic status, if they're trying to optimize their dollar money and their calorie intake, what advice do you have for them to match both the competing situations? Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know if I heard your question well, but I think you asked about how can you eat healthy on a budget. Is that your
Correct.
question?
See.
Okay. Yeah, actually, for example, it really depends on the reality of each country. For example, in Brazil, it's really easy to eat a whole food plant-based diet because we have like so many climates, so many types of soil that we can actually grow everything. So it's really easy to buy things like, simple staples like grains, beans, fruits, vegetables, seeds, and everything you actually need for a balanced whole food plant-based diet. Then but at the same time, it's difficult in Brazil to, for example, buy good quality plant-based milk. It's very expensive. It's something like 3 to 5 times more expensive than cow's milk. So the way to make it more affordable is to make your plant-based milk at home using, for example, oats and water and a blender. It's really easy to make. Everyone can make it at home. No cooking skills are required. So things like that. So we have to understand what is available for us and stick to these foods. However, in Ireland, for example, where I live, the reality is completely different. They almost don't grow anything except for potatoes and kale. The economy is very meat and dairy based. So it's not as easy to buy, for example, native plants, local fruits and vegetables as it is here. It is in Brazil, because I'm spending some days here in Brazil. That's why I don't want to confuse you. So yeah, like I said, in Ireland, it's much easier to follow a plant-based diet based on processed foods that mimic animal products. So of course, this wouldn't be the healthiest way to eat, but you can mix, for example, I don't know, meat-free analogs, tofu, tempeh with, for example, potatoes, kale, grains. So it really depends on where you live and, and making the most of what you have available. And of course, in most places, things like potatoes, rice and beans are really cheap. So there's no excuse. I hope I answered your question.
Same.
There was one more question about the hypoglycemia. Oh, here we go. Can we trust low glycemic index claim?
Yeah, let me open the chat because I wonder if I'm still sharing. Yeah, I'm still sharing the screen. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
Okay. Okay, can we trust low glycemic index claims? Okay, the glycemic index claim is not regulated in most places. For example, it's not regulated in Europe, for example, and it's not even allowed. But I know that in other places like the US, even though it's not regulated, it's not mandated by legislation, manufacturers can include information about the glycemic index on their food labels. So based on this, I really wouldn't say we can trust because it's not regulated. And to be honest, if you're not diabetic, you should not be concerned about the glycemic index because if you eat healthy overall, so there's no, it's not worth it to worry about counting, you know, the glycemic index of each food you eat.
Okay, well, that was, I think that about covered the questions. I've got to jump off here in a minute, but does anybody have a last minute question?
I think there is a question about hydrogenated oils.
Okay.
I think, yeah, so let me try to summarize the idea. Okay, if you think about vegetable oils, for example, they are obviously liquid at room temperature. But in the food industry, hydrogen is sometimes added to oils in a process called hydrogenation to make the oils solid at room temperature. And why is that? Because this way you can add more fats to biscuits, cakes, and breads to extend their shelf life and improve the flavor. Okay, so otherwise, if you didn't do this, the oils would be in the natural state, which is liquid at room temperature. So the texture and consistency of the end product would be unappealing to most consumers. For example, you would see a product dripping fat. So yeah, so that was the explanation of what hydrogenated oils and why they're used. And yes, hydrogenated oils should be avoided. Firstly, because reducing our intake of fats is always a good thing. And second, because they are rich in trans fats or trans fatty acids, which increase cholesterol and lead to heart disease. So yes, you should avoid hydrogenated oils. Absolutely.
Well, thank you for that. Yes, there's a lot of great information. And if you all haven't seen the series, please go back to WeDidIt.health on YouTube and catch up. And then we're on for next week, Camila?
Yes, it will be in 2 weeks' time, right?
Are we gonna do in 2 weeks? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
2 weeks. We're gonna.
So it will be the 1st of March.
Sounds good. Yes, definitely. Okay. And well, thank you for this. And thanks everybody for joining. I mean, this is wonderful. We can come together, and thanks for being patient. I know we started a little bit late. That's all good though. It was so informative. I'm just very grateful to be part of this series.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary Kitty, and thank you, everyone.
Everybody subscribe and find Camila. Please reach out to her because she's a wealth of information.
I'm going to label this presentation perfect.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was perfect. You're right. Thanks, everybody.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.